This video starts up with a very specific analysis in the middle of a big corpus of text. As the video proceeds, you will notice that we are going to go significantly wider and try and find out about all the topics that are present in our source material. But that's for a little bit later. Let's start with what we are looking at here. The question we have asked here is what could be called a Boolean logical question. We start with putting a plus sign. That means that everything after the plus is going to have to be present in the text for the criterion to be met. So we want any synonym of EU to be present, and we want references to Brexit to be present. And since the text we are analyzing are the oral negotiations in the UK House of Commons in the Parliament, we expect to get some hits. And indeed, we do get some hits. We actually get 35. We have one here. This is a question: has the leader of the House considered making time available for his own mini personal statement to update the House on the view, and so forth and so forth. And we see that we have used this function up here to highlight the word Brexit, and we see it's here and several other examples of quotes with Brexit down the page. Now, the reason why I want to go wider than this very specific investigation is I want to see how big an issue is this. How much time does the House of Commons actually spend talking about Brexit? And this analysis here does not at all answer that question. It only shows the specific quotes where EU and Brexit are mentioned in the same sentences. You see up here we have selected sentences as our criterion. So we have to go a little bit back here, and we can try another approach. For example, we can look for n-grams, and we can go very widely and investigate everything that is of a away from nature. Brexit is part of that, since it basically means going away from something. Brexit going away, Britain going away from the EU. So there is a clear movement away from something in that word, and really nothing else is being communicated by the world. We see here several other aspects of moving away from something. Actually, we have more than 1 million n-grams present in our analysis. And if we again look for a reference to exiting, we see we have it down here. It's about 1,000 examples of exit being part of a sentence. We can also see it over here. It's this color here, this bluish color, but really it's very difficult for us to discern it graphically, because it's one of these very small ones here. So actually we know now already that since Brexit is a subsection of exiting, we know that this topic is very small in the much wider general away from context. And actually, this was just one major topic that we could be looking for. There are several others we could be looking for, so we still don't have an overview of the European discourse in House of Parliament. And actually, also in this context, we don't have any information about whether or not EU was mentioned in that specific sentence or not. Actually, we can calculate that it isn't in most cases, because in only 35 of these 1,000 cases was EU specifically mentioned. We know that from the previous analysis that we did. But there is another approach that we can use. So we stay with having selected our House of Commons debates here. These are the texts we have selected. And we're going to go now to our intersection analysis. The intersection analysis has been expanded a little bit with some new possibilities here. You see I can put a check mark here, and let me demonstrate how that works. I again ask for something that is away from, I could also add towards, which would kind of be the composite direction. And I can add several others, but I'm just going to stay with these two here. I'm now marking that I want away from and toward to be expanded. I want to have the first level children of these two parent topics be expanded into the analysis. And I want this to be cross-tabbed with any synonym of EU. And we have these here. And all I need to do now is to make sure that it says sentence. Yes, this analysis is going to be conducted within sentences. And I then have to submit it, and then I will get the result. It's probably going to take more than a few seconds because this is a relatively big analysis, but we will get the result, I'm sure, within a couple of minutes. And just to save time, I already prepared this, so let me show you how the result looks. This is actually not just the result of looking for intersection between EU and away from and towards. It is actually 30 different major root topics that have been analyzed, cross-tabbing with EU. And I have calculated the topic occurrence index, which is a measure of how much more prevalent a certain topic is when EU is mentioned in the material. And actually I can go down to topic number 15 here. This is root topic number 15. That is the most dominant topic in the material. And we can go a little bit to the left to see what the name of that topic is. So we go over here and we see actually the parent topic here, not so surprisingly, is about independence. So we see that actually in the House of Commons, when EU is mentioned in the debates, independence is one of the, actually the topic that is most dominant as a cross-tabbing between EU and any other root topic. We can see here how that works. We have 40,000 occurrences where some aspect of independence is mentioned in all the debates. In 2.6% of all the debates, of all these sentences, there is also a reference correction. That's actually 2.6% of all the sentences, because the total number of sentences is 1.5 million. But then we go over here and see, okay, so how about in those sentences where EU occurs? Well, it so happens that we have 1,200 occurrences, so not at all 2.6%, but in 1,200 of the 40,000 sentences where some aspect of independence occurs, we also have a mention of EU. That means that we have a basis for calculating, was that what we expected? And we get that number out here. If all the occurrences of independence had been evenly distributed across all the debates, we would only have expected 462 occurrences in the material. But as it happens, of course, that is not what we see. We see that the independence theme is much more dominant. We have 1,200 instead of 462. That is an index that is 269, and therefore significantly higher than any other topic, and it is our number one dominant topic in the material. This is an example of asking a question which is just about, okay, so show us what is the dominant topic in the material, and we will then later decide if we want to explore the various aspects of that topic later on. We can also see here the number 136. That means that if a topic is more current than index 136, it is on the top side of all the topics. These are the ones that are marked with red. They are on the top side. So these are the ones that are more closely related to EU discourse in the material. Now, as I mentioned, these are so-called root topics. So they are very sort of wide topicalities and have several children. How do the children look? We can see that in our next presentation here. Here are some examples of how the children can look. For example, we have a topic that is present 347 times in all the debates. That is about departure, resignation, and we can kind of hear on the words how they could fit into these debates. Then we ask ourselves, is that what we expected? No, we only expected 33 occurrences of that that kind of words. We have many, many more, and that is an index of 1041. That's actually 10 times, more than 10 times more of this topic in the material than we would have expected if everything was evenly distributed. We looked at exit, and inside that one we have Brexit before. We would generally have expected 10.7 occurrences of that. We didn't get that. We got 170. That is index 1600. Or discussions about protectionism, trade barriers. We had 18 of those. We actually would only have expected about 1 or 2 references to that. That is also a very high over frequency, although I should remember to warn myself here that actually 18 is a very small number, but still the index makes us look more closely on this one. Then we have effective market-free trade. That combined topic only should have been there 18 times in 18 sentences. We had 433, so that's 20 times more frequent than what we would have expected in the material. And the final one, which is about staying. So of course we have the remainers also discussing these things. They are present 813 times. We would only have expected 102 times. That's a factor 8, so 8 times more in this area than we would have expected. And actually what we see here is only a few examples of 1,957 analysis into various aspects of the EU discourse in House of Commons. WordMap supports your curiosity going on some tours out to the event horizon and finding out what is specifically characteristic of a discourse where EU is present, what is specifically characteristic of a discourse where EU is not present. I realize that this was a lot of information in just a few minutes. We will get back to this new option in other videos, but this was an introductory one. Thank you very much for watching, and see you back soon.